Hello and welcome back to Dukascopy TV, and of course our regular instalment here with Jean-Francois Owczarczak of MJT. Jean-Francois, welcome back into the studio.
Hi Thomas.
Last week we were talking a little bit about gold going lower. You were talking about gold going lower. What have we got this week? What have you got this week for us?
Well, basically gold has gone lower, and we were a few weeks back it actually accelerated up on our daily charts. We issued a warning saying that we needed much more confirmations to confirm that strong move, and now gold is back in what we label as a correction up, and it has done this correction up, and it's moving lower again in line with the long-term weekly charts. So maybe it's a good idea just to start on gold and have a look at it.
Yep.
And so we are on usual mosaic here with euro dollar, cable, Australian dollar, gold, dollar Swiss, dollar yen, 3 months S&P futures, and 3 months treasury bonds or 30-year futures. Now let's look at gold. So we're on an investor's view here. Investor's view is a combination of a weekly long-term chart, a daily medium-term chart, and an hourly short-term chart. And you can see our long-term is still heading lower. We think there's probably 1 or 2 more quarters to go. The reaction that we've seen over the last few months, we think, is an intermediate correction before a new downtrend. Let's quickly click on it. We could see that we were in a lot of exaggeration here, justifying this upward correction, but the downtrend is still in place, and there's still a few more quarters and a couple $100 to go.
Do you see that continuing throughout the rest of this week and into next week?
Well, at the moment, there's nothing really telling us anything different, at least over the long term. Over the medium term, if you look at the daily, we've corrected up straight into what we would have expected here. Did notch up a tiny bit above it, but it did move down pretty quickly afterwards. And so it says correction up done at the moment. We've had quite a bit of exaggeration here on the oscillator. So at least we are in an intermediate correction, which, giving the long-term downtrend, has the risk of moving lower. And so if we now turn down to the short term, well, the short term is getting exhausted a bit. We've had quite a nice move. It is oversold. The envelopes are touching each other, but in terms of timing and of potential, there's probably a bit more to go in the course of this week.
Okay, let's just move away from commodities for a second, just have a look at the currencies.
Okay.
Let's look at euro dollar and in relation to the S&P. What can you talk us through your assessment at the moment of euro dollar?
Okay, euro dollar also in a long-term uptrend on our weekly charts. We've been leading that we think it's out of a base. We're probably being a bit aggressive here, but nevertheless, it's still an uptrend at the moment over the long term. Now over the daily, that's probably the most important chart, is that we've made all our way up since mid last year, and we've slowly gotten to a point where envelopes are touching each other, the oscillator is in the red, and our targets have been fulfilled. So we think generally over the next few months the euro is exhausted. It's not going to go much higher. It's reached a strong resistance. So at the best, you're going to see some work around these levels.
Well, someone I spoke to earlier actually in a previous interview was saying that we may actually see the euro start to decline.
Well, we're only in the premises of it, but our early charts have started to move down. And so they're pointing to another 2 weeks of downtrend, and it can bring us down into the 135 level, or more precisely the 136 level. There's quite a lot of exaggeration short term, so you might see a reaction this week, and it actually has already started last week. But in the end, it seems like the trend over the next week or so is still heading down at the moment.
Okay, just a little final sort of touch on the Fed, because I know Janet Yellen's speaking this evening. Perhaps not a huge amount to talk about in regards to looking ahead this evening, but what's your sort of overall feel on how you think Janet Yellen is going to direct the Fed in the next sort of week or two, couple of weeks?
Basically, in her last testimony, she basically is trying to normalize the situation, bringing down quantitative easing, talking about rates which are going to increase in the medium term to near future. And so all that, the question is she able to do it? Is the market going to be strong enough for her to allow, or is the market going to allow her to do it?
Do you think she will? Do you think?
Well,
it
I
might?
I haven't had any confirmation that it's not going to happen yet.
Jean-Francois, thank you very much for coming to the studio again.
Thank you.
Jean-Francois is here many times actually in the studio, and we'll be bringing you updates on gold, on euro dollar, you name it. Come back here and watch Jean-Francois each time for some of the latest updates here on Dukascopy TV. That's all for now though. We'll be updating our interviews of course on our website and bring you some of the latest updates too. But for now, bye bye from me.